Okay. Moving streamlined playlist. Okay. What else can I do? Voting. Okay. I moved back, and this is actually one that I don't know if I've made clear before or not, so I'm going to provide a little additional context in addition to kind of on getting re-registered to vote in Washington State. So I'm Tanis Leonhardi, full name Tanis Coralee Leonhardi, she, her, hers, of Seattle, just the Tanis Coralee Leonhardi being the full name, at least currently. As of filming this, Thursday, 21 March 2024, and I'm in the northern area of Seattle suburbs, Washington State, United States of America, Planet Earth, the original. Northern area of Seattle, King County, Washington State, United States of America, Planet Earth, the original, at least currently. Is it gonna break off and become its own planet? Like literally the land? I hope not. I like it being on Earth. Okay. And so this is on re-registering to vote in Washington State, and I moved back to Washington State in 2019. I arrived first load 31 October 2019, finished moving back early to mid-November 2019, but my lease for the place I was renting in California, it was until December 2019 that per residential documentation I moved back, kind of thing. So there was it was a staggered thing. And so in moving back to Washington State, I went through the registration process again. Before I jump into that, though, I am going to note what happened when I moved to California in 2015 is I was registered to vote in Washington State, my home state in the United States of America. And when I moved to California, they asked if I wanted to register to vote. I was like, yes. And they actually had in place that they had, whatever system it was, they cleared my voting history in Washington State. That was part of the moving to California from Washington State, was that my voter history in Washington State was not transferred, it was cleared from Washington State. And I was like going through that at the time when I moved to California, and I was like, I don't really know what that means. And then a few years later, I was like, I should check my voter registration in Washington. And I couldn't find anything, right? Because I'm no longer registered to vote in Washington. I was like, okay, well, I wonder what it would look like if I moved back. And then, 2019, I moved back, got registered to vote, which is kind of what I'm talking about. Now when I go in to check my voter's history, it does not show anything that I voted for before I moved to California. Because everything before I moved to California was cleared from the system. Which is good, actually. It means Washington State and California did its job, right? They communicated with each other and they deleted the voting history, or cleared it from public access, kind of thing, like they were supposed to do. So it's actually a good thing. But it is interesting because I keep going, I'll vote for something and I'll go to track my ballot and I can look at my voting history and stuff. And I'm like, it's weird having the stuff that I have voted for, it does not contain my entire voting history. Everything from before I moved to California is no longer there. So it's kind of interesting in that way. They did their jobs, and so I'm like, yeah. So if that system's still in place and one moves to California, then everything gets wiped. And so if I were to move again, everything gets wiped again, if that system's still in place, kind of thing. And the place I'm moving does that kind of thing. And so on re-registering to vote, so this was part of my getting my enhanced driver's license, getting my library card, and getting registered to vote. So I did have to, I picked up there's a application for registering to vote in Washington State, which I picked up from Lake Forest Park Library, which is part of the King County Library System. And my mom and I were there, and I was looking, and they had a voters thing, and it was, I think it was from there, and if it wasn't from there, then it was from King County, not King County, Richmond Beach Library, but I think I got it from Lake Forest Park, and I picked it up when we went there earlier on in the COVID-19 pandemic, towards the first half of 2020, and then I ended up holding on to it, and I was like, I might not need this because I probably can register to vote when I get my driver's license, but I ended up not being able to. I was like, yes, I want to do that one, and then it didn't register me to vote, so I actually had to go through the application, and so I had the form, and I took that, and then I mailed that into the King County Elections office. Was that the one where I called? At some point, I actually called the Department of Elections here in Washington State, and I think it was King County, but I'm not sure. I actually called at one point. And spoke to somebody, like a real person. Not like a real person, a real person. So, yes, that was part of I have actually spoken to an elections division person in relation to voting. So there we go. And so I did not make it in time for the primary election in 2020. So like the primary presidential election, but then also of the general election. I was not in time for the primary election, which was like in early to mid-August. I didn't get my license till late August, if I'm recalling correctly. And so I made it for the general election 2020, but I did not make it for the primary. Yeah, in late August 2020. So, for the driver's license, which was necessary to register to vote. So, I was like, okay, there we go. But I did get registered to vote. And so I got registered to vote in 2020, and it was time for the general election, which included president, and I voted for myself for president of the United States of America, which I've already brought up on this channel. So I'll link to my moving streamlined and my election voting, because this is directly related to that, because I've talked a lot about what I voted for, or not a lot, but I've talked some on this channel before about what I voted for. So this is kind of providing some background on the registering to vote, which I have covered a little bit, and so I'm doing a centric video on this topic. Now, if I were to move somewhere else, depending on where it goes, where I go, registering to vote, I might come with the clearing of my voting history again, and removal of me from the system. I get everything transferred to the new residential location. People wanted me to provide an update on my baby making specificity. So 3, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1. There we go. So if I have a lot of soulmates, and what's the baby making order? Has it settled? It's settled. So the 3, Andrei Minikov, Leon Marchand, Hubert Kos, in that order. The second 3, Alexander Popov, Jacob Ingebrigtsen, Noah Lyles, in that order. The 4, the Dominique Szoboszlai, Adam Lang, Kevin Chavoth, Zolt Nagy, in that order. The 1, Kyle Chalmers. The 2, Josh Kerr and Duncan Scott. And then the 1, Shane Cassis. Okay. So people wanted a settled order, which the first 3 and then the first 4, the only 4, those ones were kind of already settled. So if people wanted a settled, there's a settled thing with I guess pauses between each phase. I don't know. I feel like if it actually goes in that order, or those packets. So my best guess is if it doesn't go in that order, those packets, with the 4 being, we want to maintain that chronology in those 4. Right? That's like, and you know, that's where it stands currently. It could change, but we're hoping that makes it through. And Kyle Chalmers is the fixed 11, you know, with the follow-up Scottish people being like, Scotland, that kind of thing. Okay. And so then with registering to vote wherever I may move, that may entail change of address. That may entail a whole lot more that I may or may not be familiar with. Right? I was not, when I moved to California and I registered to vote, I was not familiar with the wiping of everything I had voted for before that point in time. Right? So depending on where I'm moving, it might be that, it might be something else that I have not encountered before, kind of like that situation in California. I don't know. It could be me. It could be me going it alone with my Andrei Minikov in Russia. It could be me going it roughly time coincidentally with me and a bunch of soulmates in Russia. It could be if I'm moving in with Andrei Minikov and a bunch of me and my soulmates are as well, or like me and my soulmates are as well, other soulmates, then it could be, and some of them, like let's say Alexander Popov moves in, but he lives in a different part of Russia, so then maybe he goes through county, so just the change of address part. So like, depending on where we're coming from and what infrastructure exists and what the voting rules are and where we're moving from and moving to, people might have different registering to vote processes. And then, yeah, I guess, yeah. My marital status might be different. There's a my who, my wedding. My who, my weddings. How does that work? Yeah. But there could be a bunch of logistics videos. Does it all make moving streamlined though? The moving streamlined place. I don't know. I have to live. We gotta start making this reality, you know. Gotta make it through. What's my biggest fear? I think my biggest fear. So let's say I'm sleeping on my bed. Andrei Minikov is in the room with me. Say, right, like the example I provided before. He's sleeping on the floor. Glass mat is out in the hallway or down next to the rowing machine, so maybe next to the rowing machine, so it doesn't fall on anybody. If there's like an earthquake or tremor or something, you know, it falls on the wrong machine, not a sleeping person, or and people don't trip on their way to the bathroom during the night or something. But my biggest fear is going to bed. You know, I'm looking this direction or something, and Andrei's asleep in this room. He's sleeping, or maybe I go to bed, fall asleep first or whatever, and I go to sleep and he's in the room, and I wake up in the morning and my biggest fear is he's not here. I have not at any point in my life gone to sleep and then woken up and my soulmate is there next to me in the same room as me. Yeah, I want my love to be there when I wake up in the morning. So yeah, that's my biggest fear. So confidence building. So in that case, that maybe him and I sleeping in this room each of the nights for the, you know, 4-day, 3-night moving scenario, my wedding moving scenario, would be a good thing. Confidence building, trust building, right? Like I can go to sleep and wake up and he's still in my room. That sounds so silly, I know, but to me that is a big fear. The basic communication of want and wanting to be there with somebody else, being in the same room as them when one goes to sleep and when one wakes up, you know, kind of, well, not kind of same thing. Please wait for me. Don't abandon me. Don't walk out of the house after you come to move me. Please don't leave me here. Okay, so anyway, that's on re-registering to vote in Washington State 2019 when I moved back to Washington State from California. Thank you for joining me.